You can stream us on all platforms, including Google, Spotify, etc., etc. Welcome to the Tony Michael Show podcast. You're about to step into my world.
Here is Tony Michael!
Tony Michaels! It's just who I am. I don't walk in the studio and say I work with all these artists. This is me. So what up, you guys? Welcome to the Tony Michael Show podcast. I wanted to have someone in today that I've known for 2 years now, and we met each other through dance. But he is a counselor for the mental illness organization for the San Fernando Valley. And for you guys that don't know, the San Fernando Valley is part of the valley in LA, in California. So he deals with mental illness. I think that mental illness has been brought up in the media really big right now. People are starting to focus on it, and it's been brought up in the media for the black community, which it is a huge stigma. So first of all, let's welcome Spencer.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So glad you're here, man.
Yes, it's a good conversation. It's needed.
It's so needed. I was one day Spencer and I was talking because I had reached out I was telling him that my son, I decided that, when we started going through a divorce, that we first went to this thing called divorce. It was called, what was it called? It's for divorced families.
Okay.
And it's to prepare my son for divorce.
Correct.
Cross has always been really, really close with both of us. And so it's called Divorce Care.
Okay.
And it was through our church. And these were qualified
clinicians, therapists.
Yes. And so that was my first time dealing with it with Cross, and I wanted to. And so Spencer and I were talking, and I was telling him, he was talking about young black men and mental illness and how they need to be able to, talk to a therapist.
Yes.
And so I reached out to him, and when I wanted to do the second season, I really wanted to cover it. And the reason why I wanted to cover it too is that I grew up in a home where my mom was completely mentally disabled. She was labeled manic depressive, schizophrenic, bipolar disorder. Those are three whole different things. And I,
yes.
From growing up with her and actually eventually taking care of her, we had to really identify my twin sister and my older sister. Big ups to them. We had to really find out. We probably know more than your basic typical person about mental illness that has someone in their family deal
Correct.
with it, because we had to deal with so many elements of it.
Right.
And so we went through a life of that. So I wanted to bring him in and start talking about it and start bringing it to the forefront, and also bring to the fact that there's a stigma. It's a stigma in the black community.
Correct.
But also too, there's a stigma with black men and mental illness.
Right.
And how we are perceived when we do say, "Hey, I need some help."
Correct.
As opposed to white men in America or men of any other ethnic group. So.
Right.
What do you think the state of mental illness, period, in America right now is?
Right. Well, Tony, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. This is a very important conversation.
Yes, it is.
Right. It's really important for the black community, because I think it's just a basic understanding of what mental health is. Mm-hmm. Black men in particular are valued for their looks and their bodies. Mm-hmm. And so when a black man is intellectual or in touch with his emotions, it kind of throws people off, right? And
wow, I love that you said that, because that.
Well, think about the athletes, athletes, football players valued for their physical abilities. Black men are, people, the whole black attractiveness, yep. Sexual, whatever. Yep. And so, yes, black men, we need to get in touch with our emotions and really recognize how we feel and where that comes from.
Wow.
So in regards to the state of, I do work with the homeless population, but we have many different types of people that I work with. And when they come out, I just try to get them to understand what mental health is. So we're mind, body, and soul. And your mental health is how you feel. Your mental health is how you process information. Your mental health are your thoughts, right? And so it's important to, put those things in perspective and really have an understanding of what that is, what that looks like for you. Mm-hmm. It shows up if there's some type of traumatic, something happened in your life, violence. A lot of these brothers are getting out of prison. And so, all that trauma and violence and stress, all of that can lead to some mental health illnesses, right? And so it's just being able to understand that it's okay and you can talk to someone. And I'm really glad that you said that you went through your church, because churches are stepping up. For the longest time, it was just pray it away.
Right.
God will take care of it. But I think you pray, and I think you believe that God will take care of it. I think you're engaged too. What can I do, right?
Yeah. Now I did have to. I went through it, and then it was an issue that came up that I had to walk away from it. We wind up getting him counseling maybe 2 years ago. And Cross wasn't showing signs.
Correct.
But we were trying to let him know it wasn't his fault. We were trying to let him know he eventually kind of was torn between the two of us. If he said his life was just kind of tore up at that moment, but he really landed on his feet. But I had to leave the church as far as the counseling was concerned, because it was it became like they questioned a couple things.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it felt like it was one-sided.
Right.
So that's why I did that.
And it also gave him a space, to process.
Yes.
This is something that was very big for him, his parents, maybe separating. And so how does he process that? What does that look like for him? How does he feel about that? Yeah. So it's all about processing, and talking about it is the first step.
Because that's what we don't do in the Black community. Right. We don't talk about, it's always what's done in my house stays in my house. Right. That was like one of the biggest sayings, right? Everybody in the hood, everywhere, or in black families anywhere, you don't talk about our personal business. And not talking about that, which is you keep things private, but when it gets to the point where it's destructive for you, for your physicality and your mental ability.
Not talking about things that happen can end up showing up in other areas of your life, as depression, anxiety, violence. The violence. There's a lot of violence in our communities, and these men are. You talk about black men. I remember growing up. You a sissy, you a punk. If you show your feelings, that's right. And you need to be able to process. You need to be able to think about how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling sad. That's okay today, because if you do not, it can show up as depression and anxiety and violence. And other things that are very unhealthy for you. It comes
out in so many different ways, and I think our community don't deal with it. And so, in trying to deal with it, the first thing, let's say, is that people, how can they figure out how to diagnose themselves?
Correct.
I don't want to say that, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
How do they just kind of recognize?
Right.
You know what? I've got some things I need to talk to somebody about.
Well, they call it being blue, but if you're sleeping long hours of the day, if your appetite has, increased or decreased, if the things used to make you come alive, you're not excited about, like for me, it would be dancing, right? So I love to dance, you love to dance. If there was a day when I'm feeling like I didn't really want to dance, or why do I not want to dance, that would be a sign for me. So the first thing is just to have some strong self-awareness about yourself, right? How you move through the world, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then if something happens in your life, how have the behaviors changed? Because the question should be not what's wrong with that person, what happened to that person. For example, I'll share a story. My mother passed a couple of years ago, and it's very difficult for me, right? And so I turned into dance, I turned to being creative, but it took time, right? So for me, it was talking to a therapist. It was doing meditation. People don't understand how important meditation is, just to quiet the mind, right? So some type of spiritual practice. I was dancing to take care of the physical. I was doing therapy to take care of the mental. And then I had a spiritual practice to take care of the spiritual. So all three of my, mind, body, and soul were working together.
How did you kind of figure that out? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Because some people kind of feel, you said blue. They also feel a little cloudy, because I think there's so many people that are functioning. They're functioning in life as far as going to work, coming home, but they're so depressed, and they're not only just depressed, they're just kind of out of it, and they're just kind of. I know for me, I just keep going.
Right.
You just kind of naturally keep going, because he's like, okay, this is what I know to do, but you have to. How did you
Yes, it's just, well, like I said, I've been in therapy for years,
so
right?
Kinda,
I've been in therapy for years.
Okay.
But you do have to process things. So processing is like recognizing the feelings. It's okay to recognize the feelings, understand the feelings. But the first step is just to have like a self-awareness of yourself, right? And then if your behaviors have changed, But I hear what you're saying. People go and go and go and don't.
And they really recognize it or whatever. So that's the first thing. Then once you do that, how is there a way to step out? Because so many people, especially black men.
Yes.
People in period. Y'all keep hearing me say black men, but I am saying that because I do know that I had a conversation. I think I kind of talked to you about this. I had a friend. He's a really cool friend. And I never share everything with everybody, but when I was going through my divorce and going through a lot, it was so much compounding.
Correct.
On top of. And I would just keep going, but just feel because you're going through a divorce and you're being accused of things that you weren't, and then you still help creating a stable environment for your son.
Correct.
Or your daughter, your kids, and then you're turning around, you're going to work, and then you're still trying to pursue your career too.
Right.
And I shared some things with them, and I would always share things with them. And then, recently we got on the phone, and he was like, you text me. You always play the victim, and I've never ever played the victim. I said no, I'm never a victim. Right. I'm a victor. Right. I never was a victim. I've never been like a war.
I'm an overcomer. Yes.
I'm an overcomer. I was never. Look at me. I'm going through because people don't know the story.
Correct.
I was never that. And so I said, and then I started thinking about mental illness. I started thinking about black men stepping out to say how they feel
right.
or what they're going through or how hurt they are.
Right.
And it seems to me that there's a double standard. White men do it. They cry. They do what they do, whatever. Or men, any other men, but I'm saying white men because it's predominantly that. They do any of that, they're showing, oh, wow, this is so right. amazing that he's doing this, that he decided to go get help and blah, 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 blah. Black men, even when we're passionate, we're considered aggressive.
Correct. For
different situations. So I was like, as soon as we do it, not only are you a punk or a fag, or you weak, or you complaining.
Correct.
Or you acting like a victim. Why don't you stand up and have a spine and be like a man and see? And that has been our mentality. So right. we're afraid to let it out.
Right.
Or go to someone and say, look, I need to talk to somebody. I'm having these issues. Correct. Or whatever. So
right.
what would be that step in them being able to go and
right,
try to get help?
Well, since churches are really doing some great job with mental health and counseling. So it would start with someone you can trust. I would say a pastor, and hopefully the church has some type of clinician or mental health ministry that can refer you to talk to someone else. But you have to get comfortable enough to be vulnerable with people. Sometimes it's not good for these people to be vulnerable in their communities. If you grow up, south side of Chicago, wherever you're at, sometimes it's not good to be vulnerable. You got to keep your guard up. You got to be right. tough. You got to, And so finding someone you can really trust, I would start with a pastor or an individual, someone you really trust in which you can, open your feelings up and talk about what's going on. I'm sad, right. And it's such a sad, unrealistic, situation we put black men in. We are human. There is sadness, there's grief, there's depression. Life can get the best of you, right? And so I think it's so unfair to think that our young men should be growing up not being able to express themselves and not being able to talk about how they feel.
Yeah, you know what you're saying, because this just jogged something with me. So I'm listening to Ryan Seacrest, and we were talking about Kobe. I'm sorry, they were talking about Kobe and a girl's dad. Am I saying that right? A girl's dad. They were saying that. So, and they were talking, and I heard, and so a guy called on, and they started talking about stuff, and he said, the father said, I went over and hugged and gave her a hug, and told her it's gonna be okay, and blah blah blah, and built her up, and she was an athlete or whatever, and so, and then Ryan said, see, I'm a girl's dad. He said, because, see, that's what I would do. He said, like with a boy, I would just go over there and pat him on his back. It's going to be okay, and let's go. I thought that. I said, this is where we're at.
Right.
This is what we're talking about.
Correct.
I said, listen to me. We keep saying that in this whole Me Too movement that we've got to start changing the thoughts and the way that we're raising boys.
Correct.
Right? And if we're going to say that, then we're not going to treat them like that, because most boys need exactly what that girl needed.
Correct. And
I was just floored, and I wanted to call in so bad. I was like, no, he needed some love,
correct. Some
hug. It's the same thing. I
right.
said, there's no, but it was so interesting to me. Nobody said nothing.
No one thinks about
Nobody called in. And a lot of times I say to this, I think personally that boys are getting forgot
right.
little by little, because we're in this world of when we're in the Me Too movement, and all of the women, all that, and I'm for that. I have a twin sister, older sister, and everything. And then we also are in the movement of when it comes to sexuality being identified in different ways. People
Correct.
identifying, as boy as girl as boy, everything that's going on. And I see we're focusing on that, and I'm fine with that. We should be doing that as well.
Right.
But what I'm starting to see is that there's starting to be a lack of recognizing the boy.
Right.
Now we don't even want to talk about the black boy.
Right.
Recognizing them and not leaving them back, and people don't think that they need the same kind of attention and help as the girls and everybody else that are going into transgender and the whole LGBT community that want to be. I'm like, wait a minute, y'all, we forgetting, and if we're gonna train and we're gonna show them different, then we need to kind of reach back and get the boys, black boys. We really got to give some love to because usually they're just kind of born into stress.
Correct. Right. And I would tell parents, if you have young men, you have a young son, like ask him how he's feeling. It's okay how you feeling, what's going on, how you processing information, what's going on, and really talk to them about their feelings. And it's okay. It starts at home, right? Yep. So it's okay. This is a safe space for you. We affirm each other. We lift people up in this household, and we talk about our feelings, and we come to some sort of solution and some sort of recognition of how we feel.
Right.
That's the first sign, right, of just recognizing how you feel.
Because we got to start with the boys. We've got to start. I was like, okay, if we're gonna retrain the boys, and then I was also saying too. I was telling somebody else. I was like, listen, we're retraining boys, but we've got to retrain girls as well because I'm growing up with he crosses in 8th grade now. I saw more aggressive little girls in 3rd and 4th grade than I've ever seen before. Right. 5th grade, 6th grade, hitting, punching, kicking, doing what they want. And I was like, oh, God.
And those are signs, right? So we don't know what's going on in the household.
That's kind of how they release it.
Yes. We don't know what's going on in the household. Is there food? Is there lights? Is there violence? Is there abuse? And so those behaviors are being acted out in school.
So when you're out on do you go out on the road, out in the streets of the homeless?
Right. So we have clients that come in. So my job is to get the client connected to mental health service. They see a doctor, they see a clinician, and they work with me. And all of us is to get them med compliant, And people, one thing about medication, people, I don't want to take medication. Okay. Well, there are other things we can do. You may need medication.
Right.
But before we get there, are we journaling? Are we meditating? Some things you're going to need medication for.
Right, definitely. Cause my mom, because she was manic depressive, because I would watch her. We could watch her. We could tell when she became manic. Right. The bipolar was just, my mom would just stare outside and up like this for hours. I'm like, what? This is when we was like 6, 7.
Right.
And so she hated medication because she didn't like some of the side effects of it back in the day. I mean, my mom died a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Not even 15 months ago. But she hated medication, so that was but she needed it because she needed the balance and the chemical balance in her brain because it was like if she was manic, dude, she would just clean the floor and just be so weak. As kids, we didn't know what it was, but then eventually we noticed it. So I'm not medicine for everything, but I always tell if you need it, you need it.
Yes.
And
I think you take the medication, and some people, like I said, a lot of my clients, they have very strong in faith in God. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just give it to God. Well, you can give it to God, but you also need to take the medication, right? So can you take the medication and pray? Can you take the medication and work out? Can you take the medication and meditate? Right. Can you take the medication and have a gratitude journal? So medication is important.
Look, to me, like when you say that, it's just like I take blood pressure medicine. I'm like, Lord, thank you, I'm healed from my blood pressure.
And pray.
And I pray, and I believe I'm healed, and I gotta keep taking it. That's what people getting it.
Right. But also anything for you to be your best self, right? So if the medication is making your mind clear and you're not acting out of impulse, and you better make better decisions. The medication. Right.
And then so do we go medication, and then where will we go from there?
Medication, working out. Mm-hmm. People that it's the first thing you should be doing is working out every day. Getting your heart rate up 30 minutes a day, working out, dancing. People think it has to be some gym. It can be dancing. Anything that makes you feel good. Dancing works for me because I enjoy it, and I can put more of myself into it. But medication, exercise, meditating is everything.
I think now we don't have enough of that. People just take a minute to when I wake up in the morning, I wake up and pray and I get some word, and then there's a time when I just like stop everything for a good 15-20 minutes.
Yes.
And sometimes I used to tell Cross, I wake up early when I wake him up. You hear that? What, Daddy? Silence.
Yes.
Like we're such a all of this stuff that's coming in, that's the information.
Insta this, insta that. Yes. Yes.
So let me tell you something. What's are you seeing out the mental challenge with the homeless? Are you finding more younger people than ever before now?
A lot of young people, some elderly, a lot of elderly on fixed income. So one bedroom in LA is about $1,600. Right now the voucher about the Section 8 voucher about $1,600, and so a one bedroom is like $1,600. And so who can afford that, right? If you're a senior on a fixed income of SSI, or if you're a young individual working just an entry level job somewhere, $1,600 is already high. But also people think it's a lack of affordable housing. That is true. We do need more affordable housing, but it's also mental health,
Just
and
period.
mental health. I mean, it's mental health if you're unable to address your sanitary conditions. It's mental health if you're walking around with injuries and casts and in a wheelchair. It's mental health if you're unable to take care of your hygiene. So all those things are red flags, right? To be able to take care of yourself.
Right.
So many young people, a lot of seniors, many seniors.
Do you think that because a lot of times what I've noticed that it's spaces, you guys that are not from LA, it's nowhere you can drive now. I mean, nowhere in LA that you can drive now that you don't see homelessness. And sometimes I always go, how did they get here?
Right.
And I know with my mom it was times when I would be working for Jennifer Lopez.
Right.
I'll be working for, I never forget I was working for Jennifer, and we in a plane. I just get off the phone right after we take off. I take a call from my sisters from London. Paris, I'm sorry. And we take off, and they tell me about my mom. They can't find my mom. They can't find her. They can't figure out. And that's, she had an apartment, but she's out in the street.
Right.
We can't find her.
And your mother had support.
There was another problem too, because I want to talk about that.
Yes.
But so I'm in the top. I'm take off. I hear this, and I take off, and I'm in the plane with Jennifer Lopez, looking at the Eiffel Tower, trying to figure out where's my mom.
Where's my mother?
They can't find, and how do I process continuing to work and do this because I'm the choreographer and deal with the fact that they can't find my mom. They haven't seen her in 4 days or 5 days. Now the other aspect of mental illness that I wanted to, this is what I wanted to address. My mom tended to think, and I found this out through talking to some of her therapists. Sometimes we would talk that the closest person to them that's trying to help them, they view it as the person that's trying to hurt them.
Yes.
She went through that a lot. Is that common?
Yeah. It can be common. Like I said, each individual is different, but sometimes it is that they think that they don't understand that you're there to provide support to her.
Oh, dude, she would just fight my twin sister. She just looked at my twin sister as just wrong. I always thought she was trying to hurt her. She's always trying to help her.
And it's also to remember that you really can't reason with mental health. Like we're talking about major diagnoses like schizophrenia, bipolar. Yeah. You can't really reason with that. That's why you see so many people on the streets with buggies full of trash that thinks they're personal belongings. It could be an old teddy bear. It could be just trash, and they think it's their personal belongings. Yeah. And so it's hard. You really can't reason with mental health. That's when the medication comes in and the proper diagnosis and just, meeting with the therapist and doing this whole wraparound program with doctors, medication, and meeting with a clinician and therapy.
It's crazy in LA that you see so much of it. And I mean, you see so much homeless, and it's so crazy that mental illness is connected to the homeless in such a large way. Because you like I said, everywhere you go, you see they are literally everywhere building, living in tents, and then I see a lot of drugs having to do with the younger people.
Yes.
But the older people, now that you say that, it makes sense that I like not being able to take care of themselves, and then that generation tends to think I don't want help from nobody.
Correct.
And
also family support is everything. I think like if you have a young individual in your house, I think it's all about support. What the household is determines a lot about a child, right? Their confidence, self-esteem, their mental health. Yeah. CPS doesn't want to take your kids, but the kid must be in an environment where health can be cultivated, right? And they're safe and they can thrive in school. And very hard to thrive in school. Yeah. You're hungry, there's fighting.
So hard for us.
Very hard.
We never had food. I would go and collect. We would get to school early enough for breakfast, and then after lunch was served, I would go and ask the cafeteria lady, "Hey, do you have any extra?" We used to call them cold packs. It was a hot pack and a cold pack.
Right.
She would give me a ton of cold packs. We would take them home.
Yes.
But it's hard to thrive when you're young. Try to function in school with that, every situation going on, dealing with that.
Yes.
What would you say? What are when you diagnose, or you don't diagnose?
I don't diagnose.
Right, but let me ask you a question. What are some of maybe the top 5 diagnoses
Struggles,
when people
right.
struggles that are, when I say schizophrenia,
Yes.
what are those?
Number 1, depression.
Okay.
Depression's really big. People, and also just the stress. First of all, it can be very stressful to live in LA, right? So rent is high, gas is high, working 2 or 3 jobs, on your grind, and so a lot of depression. And and depression happens, right? A death in the family, loss of a job, anytime there's a big traumatic change in your life, depression can happen. But we're talking about long-term depression, so yes. There's a passing, you lose a job, that could take a year or 2. But we're talking about long-term, if you're having long-term depression. So depression is number 1.
Number 1, okay.
A lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety, can't breathe, nervous, a lot of anxiety.
And anxiety comes from what?
Anxiety comes from, it could be traumatic, something traumatic in the house. So everything is always from an experience that the individual has had. So like I said, it should be not what's wrong with the person, what happened to the person. So violence, prison, right? So all these brothers, we know these prisons are not doing a great job of rehabilitating people. They just putting them out. And so I got many family members who've been in prison who have anxiety and depression. And no one's ever talked about how you feel and what you experience in prison.
Right.
Fights,
That's true.
the stress of worry.
It's true. It's true. And then they don't have it in prison.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Very little.
It's not natural to lock up a human.
Right.
It ain't natural to lock up an animal. So how can it be natural to lock up a human in that? I understand criminal.
Right.
But if you're gonna do that, then we need to produce some. But they took all that away.
Correct.
All the help they took away.
Right. And remember, these brothers are getting out with very little understanding of how, their own mental health diagnosis. I got to get a job. I got to check in with probation. I got to do a drug test. So all that stress, right?
So you would say depression, anxiety.
There's some bipolar.
What is considered bipolar?
Bipolar comes in many different forms. So bipolar is going to be like a diagnosis you would definitely get from a doctor. Yep. But it could show up once again like just something traumatic. A lot of people have bipolar. Also, it could be, if your mom had bipolar, there may be a chance you may have bipolar, right? Mm-hmm. Some of these are genetic, right? And so just understanding what it is and what it looks like for you, right?
And then after bipolar?
The others like schizophrenia. Yeah, schizophrenia, PTSD, post-traumatic. All of those things.
Can I tell you something? I think there's so many young black kids and Latino kids and just kids of color in the hood, because nobody still, everybody thinks that gang violence and things like that and drugs and stuff has dropped out of the scene because they don't hear it on TV as much as they used to.
Correct.
But it's so many kids in those communities have that. Right. Don't even recognize it.
Right.
It's almost like they've been to war, and that's really for guys men that have and women that have been to war.
Correct.
So to think that is in the communities and kids are starting at a young age getting it.
A lot of violence in the communities. So the first thing, if anything with this conversation, Tony, I just want people to really get a better understanding, educate themselves on mental health, right? What it looks like. Yes, what it looks like.
What it feels like.
What it feels like.
What it feels like. How to get help. Like, I know that you can, go to, if you can't find it within your community, go outside the community. I mean, you got the internet now.
Yeah,
so you can literally lock all that and look for, and I definitely want people to understand, it don't mean you crazy.
It does not mean that. I mean, your mind, body, and soul, right? So how to explain to my clients your mind, body, and soul. So your body's the physical, the exercise, the mind, which is how you feel, your emotions, and then your soul is your spiritual practice. And all 3 of those things, to be a whole, healthy, thriving individual, all 3 of those things must be working together. Yeah. And anytime one of those are off, you may have issues, right? And so get your mental health diagnosis. Go in and talk to people. Taraji P. Henson is doing an organization named after her dad. She's going to be doing some workshops and providing services in inner city. So you can also go to your local, if you have insurance, tell them you may need a mental health, you need to speak to a mental health provider. All those things are very, very important. But this whole thing of that I'm crazy and God is going to fix it, I think those are old narratives. We need to change those, right? We need to take care of our mental health. Nothing's moving forward in your life without mental health. all the great successes and all the greats that we love, whoever it is, LeBron, mental health, in order to do that, you got to, your mental health got to be intact, right? And so I think I'm glad we're having more conversation about this. Like I said, Charlamagne, TD Jakes has an event coming up in Austin, Texas, I believe, April the 28th. He's talking about mental health. So these churches are getting involved with mental health.
You have to. I think too, like I said, with young black males, they're not nurtured enough. It's not enough care out there for them. It's not enough, and not just young black males, but black males. Period.
Right.
I know the stress of working. I found my body like a couple weeks ago. I got sick, but I was just breaking down because I was dropping my son at school, then running to my 9 to 5, then working on getting this show going, then turning around pitching stuff to networks, then turning around making sure the bills were paid, and then one day I kind of just like was, whew, like this is a lot. It's a lot, and just dealing with. I kept saying to myself, I want to keep bettering myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things is I got my twin sister and my older sister. Sometimes we talk. A lot of times we talk about what we went through, and we went through a lot. And I know I have triggers, like I was telling my sisters it was when it got cold in LA.
Correct.
It got real cold in December.
Yeah.
Like, where I was like, man, I was coming from work. I was like, I can't wait to get home to get into the warm. And I told my twin sister, I said, you know what is so funny? I connect cold weather with being poor. And she was like, really? I was like, Nick, that's one of my triggers. I will never ever get my heat ever cut off. I'll always pay that bill. And she was like, Tony, really? I said, yeah, we never had it.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of you just trying to, we lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building complex. And so we had radiator heat. Some of y'all definitely don't know about that.
Right.
But if the man that owned the building didn't go and take care of it in the basement and turn it on and make sure it clicked on and off, we wouldn't. It's like you would hear knocks.
Yeah.
And then the heat would come on.
Right.
But we wouldn't have heat, and so that's a trigger for me.
Right.
What I think all three of us have done really well is that we kind of recognize, especially my twin sister, we recognize triggers and things that we like. Whoa, like food.
Right. Right.
Not having food for so long, always overcompensating with our kids.
Right.
Make sure y'all eat. Make sure with Cross, I never had underwear. So with Cross.
Yeah.
You got like 50,000 pair of underwear. Like we can't wear no underwear. And so I think as I've got older, I was like, I told my sister, I said, I think I might reach out and go talk to somebody because I'm pursuing Tony Michael's dream.
Yes.
And that's stressful because we're in Hollywood.
Right. But we all must take a step back and a breather in order to take care of ourselves. I remember when I went to my therapist, the first thing he asked me, like, Spencer, what are you doing to comfort yourself?
Yeah.
But
like, a lot of times, like, especially in our community, especially in the black community, if you're, and everybody, I guess I could say this about everybody, they're working hard and we're constantly on our grind to just, you're working 2 or 3 jobs to make sure everything is paid for and you're trying to keep up and you've got to take care of everybody in the household. And so it's a lot of times you don't get a time for me time, and you're right.
And what are you doing right now for our listeners? Something we can share with them. What are you doing right now to like get to your center and take care of your mental health? Here you are.
Well, at the top of the year, one of the things I did. That's a great question.
Yes.
One of the things I did was I made sure because I really I don't say that I'm religious. I'm a Christian, but I'm extremely have a relationship with the Lord. And one of the things I would do early on and when I moved out to LA and eventually got into working in the field and really, I would see stuff that I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I really got girded in the Word of God and learned how to create a relationship with God, just me and Him.
A God of your own making,
yeah,
right?
I'm Christian. Jesus, loving Jesus, and I will. So what I returned back to getting up in the morning and taking an hour of my day, the beginning of my day, to ground myself in that, to remember who I am, to remember whom's I am. To those things have really allowed me in this month to get really centered and grounded and
spiritual,
and spiritually. Okay. And that to me, when your spirit, when and then I start getting sick with the bronchitis and stuff, all the stuff I was dealing with, and but it grounds me in a way that never had, and that people don't realize as a Christian you can meditate as well. That word is in the Bible. If you believe in the Bible, that word is in the Bible. So I literally meditate on some scriptures and I listen to some word. I do some confessions.
Okay.
some people say affirmations. I do
Affirmations
some
are great.
quotations and get myself together, and it really, really makes a difference in my day.
Yes.
Because when I am bombarded with different situations and circumstances that jump up, how I'm gonna respond or react to them is key to when I got up that morning
Right.
and what I did. So those are the things I'm doing: praying, studying the Word, really creating my spiritual base is my base.
And you're dancing, so that's the body.
And the dancing, I always and I work out.
Okay.
I go to the gym, work out. I want to feel better about myself. I'm trying to work on spending more time with myself. I feel better about myself. I want to get physically back to where I was physically,
Nice.
looking wise,
Yes.
and just in general. Because if you don't got if you don't have the physical, I can't go take care of cross.
Right.
I can't go take care of it. So I've learned that and started just really, really taking care of myself. And physically, I know that I'm past most people. They're not as grindy. They don't grind as much as I do when it comes to working out or dancing.
Right.
Like you said, the dancing. And then sometimes I just take a moment. But most of the times, that's my foundation. What I'm doing. It's since 2020, I decided to start doing that so I could get back. And I find myself more centered because as I'm getting older, I don't want to react and respond to things the way I used to in my 40s.
Right.
I want to respond in a different way because the way I respond and react, it dictates the way everything else will go.
Correct.
So those are the things I'm doing. I'm having Cross kind of get girded in it so it can help him. I'm telling he's getting so busy with everything that he's doing.
That's good.
And I always tell him, I say, first thing in the morning, you want to get up and take some time to do this and do that. And he's like, okay, Daddy.
His mental health and how he feels will be really important for him. As he navigates his way through life.
Yeah, he just had this incident where he got something, he booked something really big, and then at night he booked it, and then by the morning they canceled it.
Yeah.
And so just the way that, he navigates. So I'm raising a young
teaching our young men how to deal with disappointment. Rejection.
Yes.
And
like you said, one of the biggest things that I try my best to talk to Cross. When I know something's really bothering Cross, not try my best, I do. What am I saying? I talk to him all the time. Right. I do know how to pull back. I'll pull back and I'll look and I'll see. He may say, I don't want to talk about it right now. I want to talk about it right now. I said, okay, listen. You don't have to talk about it right now. I said, but what I will say to you is that I'm here for you and you have to voice it. So then maybe an hour or two pass.
Yeah.
I said, you need to let it out. You know? And so he'll
let's unpack this.
Yeah, so all of a sudden we'll be doing one thing. One time he was playing a game. Because I can tell when he's frustrated.
Correct.
I'm innately connected to that guy.
Yeah.
I can know when.
And as parents, you should be. I mean, you should have an understanding of how your children react and what they respond to.
Yeah. So I do that. And I can tell that, and with that, he'll all of a sudden we'll be playing a game and he'll start talking. I said, okay. Well, how do you feel about this? Especially when it's something like really crazy. I'm like, okay, Cross, well, let's try to approach it in this kind of way. Let's try to feel. Now, always come to me and talk to me. He's turning 14 now, so. A lot of stuff is going on.
Yeah. Tough time.
Yeah. You know what? It's not really been a tough time.
Okay.
He's becoming more of a boy.
Yeah.
He's seeing girls and he's what do they call that? Puberty.
Puberty's happening.
His hair's starting to be everywhere.
Okay.
And I hit this daddy, and what happened
here?
Why is this moving?
Right.
It's all those things, and so I try to keep an open dialogue with Cross, and I work at it, and some things he might not want to talk about, but what I notice is that he always says, Dad, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I can always come to you.
Right.
So I think that's key.
Good.
A lot of times I try to explain to him that there's a lot of, especially Black and Latino boys, men of color, that don't have that.
Yes.
Don't have that avenue, and so that's why I wanted to bring you on so we can just talk about where they could reach out at.
Where they could reach
and
out.
go and get some kind of help, or just talk to somebody about the way the school made them feel, or somebody at school made them feel.
Right.
And then young men, we just push it. College guys and guys that are coming into the workforce now, and they're trying to pursue their dreams. And I mean, the world can be cruel.
It can be. It's very stressful, and that's why I think it's important. Like the first thing I do in the morning is I try to do 20 minutes of meditation, and people really don't sleep on gratitude, writing gratitude. It's something to be said about getting your physical body involved too. So when you're writing and journaling really helps. It's very peaceful. It's very therapeutic to kind of write down your emotions. So I try to write 5 things that I'm thankful for. Of course, I'm exercising and dancing and affirmations, and all that centers me. Right, that fills me up before I get the meeting with my clients and things like that.
That's really good. That's really, really
It's
good.
everything. You have nothing without your mental health.
Yeah.
Physical body, we love physical, and yes, you need a connection with God, but mental health is so, so important. So I'm glad we had this conversation.
Yeah, and I think also, too, this will help people, everybody reach out to, if you need some if you need some help or some diagnosis of it, or if you are afraid to confront it, try to, text someone, mentalhealth.com. Try to look up ways, because everybody's pretty much got a phone now.
Yes.
To reach out and talk to someone, someone you can trust.
Yes.
But I think that we got to start pushing it. Like I said, black men really got to go ahead and start, and even men that are of age, still start pushing it and say, okay, you know what, I'm not too old to just talk about these. That this affected me. Yes, it did affect me. Yes, it did. Come to the understanding. That what, this did really affect me. I thought it did, but it did.
Right, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so now that I recognize it, what can I do to improve it?
Absolutely.
What is my understanding of what happened to me? What is my understanding of what I can do? What are my options to improve my life?
My life, yeah.
Yes.
Hey, so you guys, I want to thank Spencer so much.
Great conversation.
So much. This conversation was good.
Thank you.
It's good. I want to just open the dialogue up and talk about mental health as a whole, because I know all about it from dealing with my mom continuously in my life, and I think it's key to us really getting to the next level in our lives. And I think when people also hear from not just celebrities but layman people that are out in the field and you're seeing it,
correct,
it's key. So thanks to Spencer so much, you guys.
Thank you, Tony, for having me.
No problem, man. I love that we did this. You guys can if it's someone in the LA, in the San Fernando district, how can they reach out maybe to you?
So my organization is San Fernando Mental Health, and we're located at 16650 Sherman Way, 818-901-4836. All about mental health, all about improving your mental health, all about well-being.
So you guys can reach out to that. You can check that out up on the screen. And if you have any issues or problems mentally, or feeling, suicidal. Some people think just because you don't feel suicidal, you're not having problems. But if you're just constantly in a slump and you can't seem to figure out what it is, just
reach out, get help.
Reach out to someone.
Correct.
And get help. Okay. Hey, big ups. Thank you everybody for coming in today. Thanks, Spence, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for viewing Tony Michael Show podcast. Out. Peace.